This is the rule of law. When are you going to stop abusing our house? Mr. Police Officer. That's what this whole thing is about. When are they going to stop abusing their power? All right. We just got through broadcasting live from Austin City Hall. We're still here. We have permission to finish out our show here. They just finished. And right now we've got Barry Cooper with us. Thank you for joining us, Barry.
Of course, I'm glad to be here. My pleasure.
And Barry, you are with, give us the name of your website and your video again.
It's nevergetbusted.com and copbusters.com with a K.
Excellent. Nevergetbusted.com and copbusters.com. All right, Barry, why don't you give us some background on who you are and what you're doing now to stop this police corruption. Now, you're from East Texas, right?
That's right. I'm from East Texas, but we recently located to Austin to launch the Copbuster project, and it was successful. We successfully stung our first police officers in Odessa December 5th.
Excellent.
And we launched that from Austin. My bosses call me one of the top narcotics officers that our country has ever seen. Now, I'm an ex-narcotics officer. I have over 800 narcotics arrests under my belt, along with running over 100 home invasions that are called search warrants. And when I realized that the war on drugs was causing more harm to our families than the drugs themselves, I switched and produced videos entitled Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Never Get Busted. And they teach all the law enforcement tactics and secrets that I was taught to harm nonviolent people in America. And I also teach in those videos how to counter those law enforcement techniques. Coming off of that success, we started Copbusters, where we secretly rented a house in Odessa, Texas, and turned on a marijuana grow light and started pumping the heat out of the wall, put hidden cameras everywhere. And it was to prove that the police are using the illegal FLIR cameras and not putting that in the search warrant. So within 24 hours of us setting the trap, the cops raided the house, and that's all on video at copbusters.com.
That is absolutely Okay, we've got police in Acevedo.
Okay, this has to be fast, guys.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, we do have Police Chief Acevedo with us.
Is this the Copbusters?
Actually, this is already.
But Copbusters is here.
I looked that up. Is that like a corruption thing?
Of course, yeah. It's only corrupt cops. And our trap that we just set in Odessa, Texas, where we rented a house and placed hidden cameras and turned on a marijuana grow light and pumped the heat out of the wall. The officers didn't know it was part of a reality TV show called Copbusters. So when they obtained the warrant and the judge signed the warrant, they kicked the door in only to see signs that nothing illegal had taken place. So the judge and the police got caught in corruption, violating our Fourth Amendment rights of illegal searches and seizures. So I'm running for Texas Attorney General. I will win in 2010, at which time that makes me the top law enforcement agent in Texas. I'll be the chief of the chiefs and the sheriffs of the sheriffs. And there will be a zero tolerance policy on police departments and officers who violate civil rights of Texas citizens or do illegal searches. They'll be fired immediately. And the first 30 days of taking office, every chief and sheriff will be required to come to Austin and attend a conference that I'll be teaching for 3 days and explain how we can get police officers or the confidence of the public back in the police to where when they see a cop, they feel safe instead of paranoid.
How do you feel about that, Police Chief Acevedo?
Well, I completely agree. Any effort to make sure that police officers are doing their duties in a constitutionally appropriate manner is something that's good, because I strongly believe, at least here in Austin, I don't want to speak for everybody, but the majority of our police officers are extremely hardworking, dedicated, caring professionals. And when we don't do things right, and we go out and we break the law, it's really, one or two incidents can really make the hard work of a lot of good men and women go down the drain, because it overlaps and the hard work that goes on. So anything to keep police officers, making them professional, making them accountable, I'd support it.
So, Chief, are you endorsing cop busters?
No, I haven't seen it.
Listen,
Am I on it?
Officer
I mean, I'm Count Dracula and everything else.
Not yet.
Officer Acevedo, I wanted to ask you something also, something that Randy and I have been trying to determine, and that has to do with the legality of taking federal funding for a program to be implemented by the police. Does City Council have to approve that, or what law authorizes the police chief to just take money from here, there, and yonder? Because if I tried to do the same thing, it would be called bribery. So, why does the federal government get to do that?
Well, they don't in this city. In order for us, and Councilmember Martinez brought up a good point, where in order for us to to actually accept a grant, to accept monies from a grant, the council has to authorize that.
Okay, so is this still, all of this is still
Oh yeah,
pending
no.
City
This is
Council
just
approval?
my biggest problem is that's not just drunk driving. It's blood evidence in general for all crimes. More and more nurses don't like to go to court. They don't like being hammered by defense attorneys. That's not why they became nurses. So what I've talked to the council about is what we have a challenge here. How do we obtain evidence of a crime through blood search warrant if nobody wants to do it? And that's what we come up with lobby programs. In order for us to do it internally, other than train the police officers, we would need 7 full-time phlebotomists on staff to be able to handle the work.
But all of this is still pending City
Yes,
Council.
and then we will not bring that program here without the approval.
Okay, that was one of
And
my
I got to
main
get
questions.
going here. One more question.
One question. We do a program on due process
Yes.
and legal reform. And over time, I've been trying to get people not to focus on the police as the problem, because we really don't believe it is. And one of the things I would like to do is get either you or a good policeman to come on.
Are you saying I'm not a good policeman? Or
Another, I said another. Yeah. I would prefer you.
Well, any cop that'll take the blood from somebody involuntarily is not a good policeman.
Well, it's like people that, you got it.
Chief, you said I could ask one question.
Yeah, wait a minute, let me finish this question real quick, because you were going to have a question.
I would like you to come on, because what I want to do is give our listeners the experience of actually being a police officer and hear where you live. We hear where we live, and we hear the crap you do all the time, and we hate you for it. I'd like to hear where you live so we can get another perspective.
Well, let's face it, police officers, we have a product that nobody wants to buy. Nobody wants a ticket, nobody wants to go to jail. I mean, have you met somebody that actually wants to go to jail or wants a ticket? Nobody wants it. So it makes it very difficult for us. And what you said in there, which I really liked, is that I think at times the public focuses on the police on the front end, but there's little focus on the rest of the criminal justice system. And so sometimes we get the credit or the blame for issues that have very little to do with the frontline police officers. The fact remains that most police officers are dedicated professionals. And what you talked about in there was that something's beeping.
Go ahead.
What
Go
happened?
ahead. No, that's okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Is that telling me to hurry up?
Yeah, no, it's
what
all
you
right.
said in there was to look at what are the prosecutors doing. You said they're plea bargaining the heck out of everything just so they can get convictions, so they can get the money, and we can get them back out and still holding people accountable. I think that's a valid question, and that's something that the public should look at and see what's happening with prosecutors, what's happening with judges. Because at the end of the day, if we can hold somebody accountable so they don't do it a second time, it's not a bad thing. So anyway, guys, that's all I've got. I've got to get home to my
All right,
family.
thank you.
Chief, I had one more quick question.
What was your name again?
My name is Barry Cooper. What was your name?
Nice to meet you, Art.
Art. Okay, Art. I see your sincerity in really wanting to serve the people. There's no question there, and for that I respect that. But does the phrase "giving up a freedom in the name of security" mean anything to you, in the sense this emotional debate about DWIs is always centered around our children, as is the farce war on drugs? We need to save our kids. In the principle of taking away freedoms from us to keep Americans secure, do you agree with that principle or not?
I think that you have to balance the need for security with freedoms. If you go to the extent where we no longer live in a free society, it's kind of too great of a cause to pay for freedom. Freedom sometimes means that we do have challenges. Sometimes it means that we do take risks. And when we go to too extreme on either side of an issue, I think moderation and pragmatism and people coming together to find common ground is the way to go, and not go to any extremes.
You're right. That's why taking blood from somebody without their consent is not moderation.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Police Chief Acevedo. All right, so we just heard from Police Chief Acevedo, and so they do have to have city council's approval, right, which is something that has been kind of unclear to me for the whole time, because it seemed like they were just going to do this thing. So what are your comments at this point, Barry?
My comments are that I'm sort of embarrassed as a country that this many intelligent adults tonight had to come together to debate something as ludicrous as holding a grown man down, or a grown man or grown woman down, to draw their blood forcefully. And the chief of police kept saying over and over, we will not force taking that person's blood. And I believe him. But what they will do is tack on another charge of resisting search and arrest.
There's an issue that I've never heard addressed. What about the constitutional prohibition against the corruption of blood?
Well, and also the other issue that was never addressed, and I wrote it down on a card, a question to be asked, is that the penal code prohibits this. And so even if the transportation code at this point in time is a gray area, or even if the legislature is going to amend the transportation code, it does not matter, because when there's two sets of conflicting law, in this case, the penal code wins out over the transportation code, and that was never addressed.
Code of Criminal Procedure says that an intoxicated person
Cannot
give permission.
consent.
And then the transportation code says if you're intoxicated, you have given tacit permission. Well, if two statutes conflict, in the criminal realm, the Code of Criminal Procedure governs.
Yeah, and the code, and the other code also says that they cannot do it by force. They can only do it if you give your consent. And so that means that breathalyzers are illegal too.
Can I get into the kitchen of the listeners? Here's what's in the kitchen right now. The Mothers Against Drunk Drivers have carried an issue way too far.
Exactly.
Out of emotion. No different than when a 22-year-old black kid kills a police officer. There's so much emotion around, oh my God, a cop's dead, that we fail to look at the culture that would raise a 22-year-old man that's so angry at somebody that's supposed to protect him, but has caused him to be angry enough to kill him. It's the same when a child dies in a DWI traffic accident. It's sad, it's horrible, it's tragic. But we need to look past the emotion of that and get to the reality of what we're talking about. This is a freedom issue. I have 4 children. A 16-year-old daughter that's going to college full-time. All of our kids are straight A popular kids. And they will tell you that they are not willing to give up any freedoms for safety. I would rather take the chance of one of my children unfortunately dying in a DWI accident than to take one freedom away from one American individual. And that's what we must stand on. A lot of the forum tonight was talking about how we're going to do this and how we're going to take the blood, when it was clear the audience was booing the whole process.
I know.
So we didn't get to really debate whether we should or shouldn't do it. Most of the time was spent talking about how we're going to do this, when it's clear the citizens are not happy with it. This is fueled by insurance company money and a group of mad women that are using emotion to guide law instead of our Constitution and reason and logic. Furthermore, and I'll end with this, we inflame the situation by talking about saving our kids, saving our kids, saving our kids. Has Mothers Against Drunk Drivers or the Chief of Police of the City of Austin given any thought to the hardships brought on the families when the mother or father are arrested illegally for a DWI, and then they have to prove they're innocent? A lot of times they can't afford the court cost. So they get on probation and they have to pay $3,000 a year. They can't drive. They get all this stuff taken away. What about the harms caused on those kids at home?
Exactly.
Because of that? And they're paying attention mostly to the kids that, had died in a traffic accident, which is sad too. So what I'm saying is the real issues really did not get discussed tonight. It should have been the reverse, where the audience of 200 people were sitting back there on the panel questioning the police officers and the people in the government position instead of the other way around.
No kidding. One thing that I really didn't like about the way they had this public input set up is that they wouldn't let people make comments. You had to ask a question. Well, Randy and I came here with information to give them. I mean, we researched statutes and case law, and we were coming here to inform them that what they want to do is illegal. And so in order to make that point to them, you have to reframe that in the form of a question like, do you know that what you want to do is illegal? Can someone please respond?
This is what's going to happen when you do these illegal things. My concern was that it was totally the wrong argument. Human beings are some of the only creatures that will try to do something, and it doesn't work, so they'll try to do it harder. I'm in no way against going after drunk drivers, but the way we're doing it's not working. 99.6% conviction rate, and the drunk driving goes up. We need to back up and find a way to do this differently.
Well, and I like that. There is a solution. There's a simple solution. As I said earlier, I have 4 kids. I don't want to see them die in a DWI traffic accident. Well, I not only made more narcotics arrests than my peers, I also worked on a DWI task force as a police officer, and I'm certified in field sobriety tests that absolutely work. And I know from my experience that the horizontal gaze nystagmus, the one-leg stand, and the heel-to-toe, when you're too drunk to drive, that test will show it. We don't even need the breath test. We don't need urine test. We don't need blood test. Our parents and our grandparents gave all that stuff away, and we're going to fight on this blood issue. So the solution is the standardized field sobriety test. I do not agree with the 0.08 blood alcohol content, that you're too intoxicated to be driving. That is not a fair test. When I was young, started drinking 16 or 17, if I was at 0.08, I was stumbling everywhere. I had no business driving a car or a tractor for that matter. I grew up on a farm. Now, if I'm at 0.08, you can't even tell I've had anything to drink, yet you'll call me a criminal. So the test of 0.08 and these BAC levels are not the true test if somebody can safely drive or not. It is that standardized field sobriety. This is sensationalism driving these laws. It's money driving these DWI laws, and it's emotion driving the DWI laws at the expense of the freedom of the American people. And as Texas Attorney General in 2010, just like I told the chief, if he's still chief here, I'll be his boss, and I'll make sure and approve every lawsuit that any citizen files against a police department or a police officer for taking blood involuntarily. I'll also approve the suit of the judge for that matter.
Good for you, Barry. I really appreciate that. Excellent.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, do you have anything else for us, Barry? Will you come back? Will you agree to join us again?
I will. I would like to close with this. Please support our campaign effort. Our campaign website should be launched within the next few weeks. Until then, the way we're funding this project is through the sales of my Never Get Busted videos and other neat stuff that we have in our store at nevergetbusted.com and or copbusters.com.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. All right, that was Barry Cooper from copbusters.com and neverbusted.com. And we have another guest coming up.
Our next Attorney General.
Our next Attorney General, we hope.